Back on the show, Julian Erosa, who's got another big fight, this time at UFC Vegas 66 on December the 17th when he faces Alex Caceres. Julian, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. And I want to start with congratulating you on a new UFC contract. I saw in September that you signed a new deal. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, man. After the Dawodu fight, it was my third fight on a full fight contract, and usually what you want to do is before the last fight's up and before you're fighting that last fight on your contract, you want to renegotiate. Because you never know. You can fight out your contract and then not get re-signed. So it's always good to solidify before your last fight on that contract, a new contract. And so for me, it was a blessing. I didn't have to really do much. My manager hit me up and he said, hey, they're going to offer you this and this and this. And I was more than happy and more than willing to do that. And, it just shows that they appreciate what I've been able to do, my last handful of fights. And so 3 fight win streak, 3-0 against tough dudes, two of them who missed weight, and I still took the fight. A lot of people don't do that. There's a lot of guys who will just like take their show money and bounce, and could have done that. But it was actually more lucrative for me to actually take the fight. So, because I won and it was able to kind of raise my stock in the UFC as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So is this another four-fight deal?
Yes, sir. I think I'm pretty sure that's kind of how the standard contract is with the UFC. It's 4 fight contract deals, but who knows? I don't know anybody else's contract deals, and I'm sure once you're higher up the ladder, you kind of maybe negotiate, different kinds of contracts for yourself.
Now, are you pleased with the compensation that you're getting? I've heard a lot of fighters that are no longer in the UFC say like they feel like UFC fighters should be getting paid more. Are you happy with what you're getting?
I'm definitely happy with how things have turned out for me. I got paid a bit more money because of people missing weight. The Peterson fight was fantastic for me because I made a lot of money just based on him missing weight, and because we were fighting the night, and I got his $50,000. Um, but I think you always have to always like go back to think that I used to make 145 pounds and fight guys on regional scenes that were tough dudes for like $500 and $500. So what I'm getting paid now is substantially better, and I can make a living off it right now. And I haven't obviously dabbled in free agency, and I don't know what else anybody else would offer me. I've heard some things, that people like are getting, substantial pay increases at different organizations. But I really like the way the UFC and the way their relationship is with my management and what they've offered me and what and how they've paid me so far, and I've been happy with it.
I think it goes without saying that Jason House and Iridium is the best in the game. How happy are you to be under their wing and to have them repping you?
Yeah, man. Obviously, without them, I want to be here. I was 1-4 in the UFC. I had 1 win, 4 losses. Second time getting cut. If it wasn't for them, really pushing my name and really pushing for me to get a spot back into the UFC when COVID hit, and really going to bat for me, I don't think I would be in the UFC at all right now. Shoot, I even before I was with Jason, I knocked out Jamal Emmers on Contenders with a head kick highlight reel knockout, and I was like a 3-1 underdog, and they didn't sign me. And then literally right when I signed with Jason, it was like 3 days after that they were offering me a short notice fight with Devontae Smith in the UFC. So like it wasn't the most ideal fight for me, but it was the opportunity that was presented because of going with Iridium. And so they've done nothing but have my back 100%. I think that's what really goes into it. You want to have someone working just as hard for you as you're putting in the gym. So for me, I work my ass off in the gym, and I want to keep my focus mainly on that and let them do what their job, and they're fantastic at doing their job. So I'm really happy with them, and I know Jason. Me and him are friends as well, so it's a good relationship that we have.
No doubt about it. And I know the last time that we spoke to you and your wife, you just got a new house. So it seems like life is just going great for you on every single, every single situation. Period. What is it like being the new homeowner? Are you adjusting and things going well there?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's the market has been weird, obviously with the whole COVID thing, and sometimes people can be a bit tentative on getting a place, but it's just nice to be a homeowner and actually building equity into something. So like, I mean, you could be renting a place. We were renting for like a decent amount of time here in Vegas, but rent prices are going up pretty dramatically, and it's like, you feel like you're not really getting anything back. You feel like you're just paying for your time. Every month we were paying, $1,500 for a one bedroom apartment, and it was like
Yeah.
that money was just giving us the month. And so it's just nice to get back into a house and be able to like do things around the house that is just adding equity to it, and it's something you're proud of as well. If you live in an apartment, I don't care about that apartment. I'm not gonna go put my own sweat equity into it, but my house is amazing. Like, we did the backyard, we do stuff around the house, but it's things that will help us in the long run with the equity, and then also to just it makes it more comfortable for us to live here as well. And I love it. We love it. We love living here, but yeah, it's definitely nice to get into a house and build something.
Very cool. Well, 3 straight wins now for you, Julian. UFC 279, the UD win over Hakeem Dawodu. You know what's
Yeah.
crazy is I was watching a lot of, preview shows to, UFC 279, and a lot of people were picking Hakeem to beat you. Did you hear
hmm
that stuff? Did it put a chip on your shoulder going into the fight?
I really do like walking into a fight as the underdog because I feel like it just kind of pulls the pressure off you. But for me, with the path that I've had in the UFC, like I kind of got to a point where it's like I felt like I had nothing to lose. If I just go in there and just fight, I don't need to fight for anybody else but myself. And so but being the underdog also helps kind of get that mentality as well. And I went into that fight as confident as I could be, and I knew that a lot of people had him winning that fight and thought his striking was gonna be the key factor. And the thing about it is people don't know until you're in there. And even Hakeem himself was kind of like doubting my stand-up skills and saying that he was on another level. And technically speaking, he might be. But when you don't really know until you get in the cage, the range, the length, I'm a bit unorthodox. We're not just kickboxing, we're doing MMA. So even the striking, even the kickboxing that you're doing in an MMA fight is going to be different than the kickboxing you're doing in a kickboxing fight. And so for me, I think he just underestimated me, and it kind of gave not a chip on, didn't give me a chip on my shoulder. It just it almost gave me the upper hand in the sense that I knew once I started tagging him up and just kind of gave him a little bit of my pressure, he would kind of be second guessing what was going on, and I think that's what happened. I think I heard him a few times in that first round. I think the rest of the fight he was on autopilot. He didn't really seem to know what he was doing, and I was waiting for him to try to brawl it out because leading into that, the end of the second round and into the third round, he had to have known, and obviously his coaches had to have known he was down 2 rounds. So I was waiting for him to kind of go all out, but I think I had just, had stunned him enough and just kind of confused him and frustrated him so much to where he, was just kind of surviving and not necessarily willing to pull the trigger anymore.
Was he saved by the bell at the end of the first round? Because I know you had him hurt.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you I watched that fight back a handful of times, and he's walking back to his stool, and you can just see in his eyes he has no idea what's going on, and he might say something else, but I didn't know specifically at that time, because I knew he was a kickboxer, and I know he's got a bunch of kickboxing experience, and I know those guys are tough, man. They can take a shot and just keep going, and they can kind of just poker face it. But I watched that fight back a few times, and he's walking back to his corner, and you can just see it in his eyes, like it honestly felt like he didn't even know like what state he was in. So I think give me like 30 more seconds in that fight or in that first round, I think he's out of there. But hats off to him. He's tough, he's durable, and he was willing to kind of just tough it out. And for me, I knew he was going to be tough like that, and so leading into those other 2 rounds, once I took his back, I was just like, you know what, I don't have to make every fight a Steven Peterson fight and get crazy. And I already knew I kind of had the jump on him, and he was fighting coming back. So I had to just solidify each round and just try not to take any damage.
And you secured some takedowns as well. You really mixed things up. I mean, I feel like collectively, especially with the opponent and Dawodu, I mean, this is a really impressive win. Would you say that this is maybe the biggest win of your career so far?
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, like not necessarily what I did in the fight, but who I did it to. Kind of outstruck a striker. And he fought Evolov, and Evolov had a hard time taking him down sometimes. And he took his back for a long time as well. But I felt like, and I think what it was me mixing it up and kind of taking him out of his own element on the feet, which caused the later round takedowns. I think he thought I was going to try to shoot initially and then just outstruck him and then was able to get those takedowns because of that. I think when you fight a guy like Evolov, like the guy's going to be trying to take you down. So I think that's why it was a bit more difficult to take him down. But doing like the homework on Dawodu before that fight, I was getting a little like, you get a little anxious when you see him, defend, some takedowns from Evolov and have the cardio to go all the way through. And but once I got in there with, and like I said, you never know until you're in there with somebody. And just because Evolov seems to be like a savage wrestler, who knows? Maybe if I fought him, maybe he doesn't take me down at all. You just don't know until you get in there. And I think that was just kind of the biggest asset that I had. Even with Dawadu was just he he didn't know until I started tagging him up, and then at that point it's too late. And so I think I just did my homework really well on Dawadu, and I think he just overlooked me a little bit too much.
So with all of that being said, I have to imagine your confidence right now is at an all-time high. How confident are you feeling leading into this fight with Caceres?
Yeah, I mean, 3 wins in a row, 5 out of my last 6, and you know, it's just a good place to be. Like it puts you in a good state of mind. I don't feel like my back's against the wall. I don't feel like I have to perform a certain way. I just feel like just want to go in there as comfortable as possible, and that's kind of how the Dawadu fight was as well. Walked in there, and I felt like everything was so clear to me. Like when I walked in there, the very first time I ever fought a pay-per-view card, I felt like getting into the big UFC cage. It felt like a football field to me. And then this time, I was almost a little nervous when I was coming out. Is this going to feel the same way? Am I going to have that kind of like tunnel vision? I get out there and it didn't seem as big. I was like, oh my god, this doesn't seem much bigger than the Apex cage, and everything was just so clear and focused for me. And I think that's just how mentally I've kind of developed and matured, in my UFC career. And I'm just comfortable, in going into these fights now, a lot more comfortable than I had been. And so it's not necessarily the confidence, because the confidence is always there. I'm always confident in my skills and my abilities. I've been doing this for a long time. I know how to fight. I know when it comes push comes to shove, I'm going to be able to figure it out and do what I need to do in there. But it's all about being comfortable. That I feel like when you're comfortable, you can perform to your potential. So that's been the biggest thing for me as of late.
So we're still a little over 3 weeks out from your fight with Alex Caceres, again, UFC Vegas 66, December the 17th. And Thanksgiving is tomorrow. So happy early Thanksgiving. How difficult is that going to be for you with the fight coming around the corner to kind of like keep in check what you're going to eat tomorrow at the dinner table?
Thanksgiving. I mean, all these holidays don't really mean nothing when you have a fight coming up. I'm just focused 100% on the fight. Um, uh, Thanksgiving, yeah, I might have a little bit of something, but I got to be on top of it, man. I'm a big featherweight, like and so for me, like I gotta do everything 100% right. So I'm already, I've been in a diet for a long time, so nothing changes. I just stay focused on the task at hand. Um, Making weight is way more important to me than having a good Thanksgiving dinner. So I'll have it after my fight.
Okay. Well, what's usually the go-to for Thanksgiving? I love turkey. I mean, what is it for you that you really look forward to?
Oh, ham. Ham is my favorite. Uh, I like turkey as well. I like it all, man. I mean, really, my favorite thing to do is just to load my plate up with everything and then take gravy and just pour it over everything. So, but for me, I mean, it's all so good.
Okay, yeah, you and me, we get along just great. I wouldn't want to be fighting you for the last turkey leg, though. I'll just give it to you so I keep my head in check here. Let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your division, 145. Right now, Volkanovski looks like he'll be fighting at 155 next, or at least that seems what it looks like with Makachev maybe. And right now, Josh Emmett and Yair is going to be for the interim belt. What are your thoughts just on those two matchups? If Volk is fighting Makachev next, how does that go? And who do you think wins between Emmett and Rodriguez?
I think, like when, you know, a long time ago when Izzy fought up a weight class against Juan Blachowicz, it was like they had Izzy as the favorite. I thought that was kind of weird because they're both champions, um, but Izzy was a smaller guy, so I didn't think he should have been a favorite, and he ended up losing that fight. And so I think it's kind of the same with the Volkanovski and Islam. I think but I think it's going to be a little bit closer, just because stylistically, I think they kind of nullify each other. You got Volkanovski, who's just such a short bowling ball of a guy, and Islam, I feel, is going to have a hard time getting him and holding him down. But you never know, man. I didn't think that Islam would have choked out Charles Dubronk. So
Yeah.
he surprised us all there and didn't take hardly any damage, and it would look fantastic on the feet as well. So I think Islam wins that fight over Volkanovski, but I think it's going to be a bit closer. I think it's going to be all dependent on if Islam can take him down and control him. And then Emmett versus Yair will be a fun one for sure. God, Emmett's the same way, man. He's just a bowling ball of a guy. Like the fact that he can make 145 pounds is insane to me. I mean, the guy's got the biggest barrel chest you ever seen at featherweight. And but Yair's a fun one too. He's like all over the place, and it'll be interesting to see how Emmett kind of deals with kind of the gymnastic side of Yair. Um, but Emmett's tough too. I mean, Emmett's battle tested. I mean, the guy tore his ACL during the Burgos fight and stuck with it. I didn't think he won that fight. I thought Burgos won that fight, or I thought it was a draw at best. But he had a torn ACL right out the gate. So the fact that he was willing to fight the rest of that fight and almost knock out Burgos in the third was pretty impressive. So that one's a good one, and I'm looking forward to watching that.
If you keep winning and you win impressively, how many more fights do you think you're going to have to notch wins to get to fight the top guys? Like maybe not like Volkanovski, Emmanuel Rodriguez, but what about like Cater? I mean, Arnold Allen's up there. Like, how many fights do you think you need to win before you get to that point?
Yeah, I don't even like, I say this all the time, like, fight after fight. It's just like I don't really focus on any of that kind of stuff. I just kind of focus on the task at hand because none of that happens if I don't beat Caceres. If I go and lose to Caceres, then I'm kind of back at kind of that middling area, and I got to find, another guy kind of hovering around that area to fight. But yeah, if I beat Caceres, and then I think if I get somebody who's hovering closer to the top 10, and I beat them, then I would start to be looking at, some of those top, 7 guys. Um, but like I said, it's always the task at hand, and I'm confident in my fighting abilities, and I'm confident going into this fight. But you never know until it's
Yeah.
till the dust settles and everything happens. So in my mind, I'm gonna go and put my head into Caceres' chest and put my fist through his face, but I won't know until I'm in there with him. So we'll see what happens. And after this fight, that's when I'll be able to kind of figure out what I want to do next.
Okay, well, let's talk about this matchup again. December 17th, UFC Vegas 66. Alex Caceres. This is a guy that's been around for a while, much like yourself. Very well known fighter in the MMA world. He's coming off a UD loss to Sadiq Youssef. Have you been able to pick up on anything in his last couple fights that you feel like you're going to be able to exploit here on December 17th?
Yeah, I've watched a couple of his, a handful of his last fights. He was on a 5-fight win streak before he lost to Youssef. So I obviously wanted to watch all those fights and just see what he was doing right and what he was doing wrong. I don't think any of them were all that impressive. He did beat Choi, but he had a really hard first round, and I got knocked out by Choi, and Caceres almost got knocked out by Choi, but came back and Renegade choked him. But I also don't think that Choi's jujitsu is at the level of my jujitsu, which I should have taken. That's where I should have taken that fight with Choi. But anyways, I think a lot of those guys like Chase Hooper, Austin Springer, and then what's the other guy? He doesn't fight for the UFC. Kevin Kroom. Those were 3 of those guys in that 5-fight win streak. I don't think that all those guys were very impressive wins for Caceres. I mean, the Chase Hooper and Kevin Kroom, they went decisions with Caceres. I don't think Caceres has much of of a finish rate as well. I feel like he's kind of a guy who's willing to just try to outpoint you through the fight and try to beat you by decision like that. So I think that's kind of a hole in his game. And one of my biggest assets is my cardio, my ability to push forward and constantly just put the pressure on people. And so that's kind of what I'm looking forward in this fight. I gotta rein him in a bit. He's a bit elusive, so I gotta make sure I'm coming in a bit more guarded and protected in the beginning of the fight. But I think as the fight keeps going, I'm gonna end up breaking him with my pressure and my cardio ability, and end up trying to get a TKO or a submission in the third round.
Where is he most dangerous?
I don't think he's specifically dangerous in any aspect. To me, like when I'm watching him, I think he's good everywhere. But I think that's what makes him, that's his most dangerous asset is just his savvy veteranness. Just like me, like I could be in the fight for 2.5 rounds losing, and I'm still in that fight. I'm not gonna break. I'm gonna be there the entire time. And I think that's what he's really good at doing. He's been here a long time, and he could be losing a fight 2.5 rounds, but still in there willing to fight. So I got to be able to bring the heat and bring the pressure for 3 consistent rounds, and have to beat him at every second. But yeah, I don't think he doesn't have that like one shot power, knockout power. He doesn't have like the savage wrestling or savage jujitsu. I think he kind of gets his jujitsu and his submissions kind of in transition on guys. So I got to be aware of that a little bit for sure. And like I said, you never know until you get in there. I could go walk in there, you hit me one time on the chin, and I could go to sleep. So you never want to look past people in that sense. But it's not. I haven't seen any like specifically, really good assets of his fighting, except for his overall ability and and also his ability to be fighting 15 minutes straight consistently.
So you said earlier you think this is going into the third round TKO or sub is what you're predicting.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been. That's kind of where I've been, strong at. That's really, like with the Jourdain, the Sean Woodson fight. Those two fights are prime examples of where I kind of strive is, having those like kind of drawn out fights that guys might be ahead of me in, but that my pace and my cardio just kind of overwhelms them. And I don't think if early on in both those fights I got those guys in Darce chokes, they would have had a lot more fight in them. But wearing them down throughout the fight, I feel like those submissions come a little bit easier, and they're more willing to get out, try to get their find a way out of that fight later on in the fight. So for me, uh, a perfect fight is always kind of like in the second half of it, and really just trying to wear them down.
All right. And with this new 4 fight deal that you have, as long as you're healthy, are you trying to stay really active in 2023?
Yeah, for sure. I took a decent amount of time between the Peterson fight and the Dawoodu fight, but honestly, just things weren't like working out time wise and other for other situations. But shoot, I'm always down to fight. If I'm healthy, and I've luckily I haven't dealt with any big injuries in my entire fight career. So if I can stay healthy, I would love to fight. At least 3, 4 times in 2023. So we'll just see how this fight goes, and just go from there.
All right, Julian, always a pleasure talking to you, my man. Before we do sign off, I want to give you the floor. Tell people where they can follow you on social media. If you have anything to thank, anything to plug, floor is yours.
Yeah, obviously Julian underscore Erosa on Instagram. It's always the best way to reach out to me. Um, and I always want to thank my management, Iridium Sports Agency, Jason House, Jacob, and Lance, and all the guys on that team. Those guys do nothing but help me out all the way through my camps, and make sure I have everything that I need. That I'm feeling good. They, always bring my post weigh-in meals to me, and they just make sure I have everything. And without them, I don't think I'd be here in the UFC, chasing my dreams still. So shout out to them, and obviously all the fans, and to you, man, for having me on.